Hello and welcome back to the second video on the Metal Gear Solid sorry, 4 walkthrough, tutorial, help, tips, setup, whatever you want to call this. It's basically a general knowledge on speedrunning Metal Gear Solid 4 set of videos. So in this video, we're going to talk about the items and equipment that you're going to want and what you're going to want to do with them. So, the most important things to note is that when it comes to weapons and items, or when it comes to weapons, the game has a couple preset options. So, the weapons you're almost always going to see in your inventory, whether you want them to be or not, is the operator here. The operator is going to end up in your inventory at very specific spots. Boss fights and one other specific scene will force weapons into your inventory. All of the beauties, all 5 beauties, will put all 5. There's not 5. Octopus, Raven, Mantis. There's 4. All 4 beauties will put the operator in your inventory, and the frogs boss fight. So the way this game works is if you have the operator in your inventory, it's happy with that and it won't do anything. If you don't have the operator in your inventory, what the game will look for is what is the first handgun in your inventory that you do not currently have in your hands. And I will replace that. Oops. So, to give you an idea here. So, right now, if I went into a room and if I went into a room and I did not have the operator in my inventory, and I went in like this, it would replace my Mark II. Because it's the first item in my menu that satisfies the pistol, and pistol being these handguns, that satisfies the handgun requirement. If the GSR here was there instead, it would replace the GSR. All it does is it looks through the list and it then replaces that weapon. The second weapon, and if I didn't have the GSR in here, and I was running around with this Mark II, and the operator got put in my menu, because I have the Mark II in my inventory, it will replace the P90. Now this is assuming I have full spots. If I have an empty spot available, it will always put it in the empty spot first. So in this case, operator will go into an empty spot. Yeah, let me do a quick setup here. Because I have the Mark II equipped, in this case, the operator will go in the GSR spot. So now, in this case, it would go in the Mark II spot. And in this case, it would go in the P90 spot. So that gives you an idea of what to look for in terms of, like, when you enter a room, it's gonna force menu these things in. The only other weapons the game does that with the only other games the game does that with, the M4 Custom. The M4 Custom will get menued in for the end of Frogs. You'll get a cutscene that menus the M4 Custom in automatically. Wolf, Raven, the frogs at the start of Mantis herself, and I think one other fight will give you the M4. The operator will also go in for Vamp, and it will go in for Frogs Pre for Octopus and Octopus herself. The only other weapon that gets this effect is the the VZ83 Scorpion. During bike chase scene, this will automatically be menued in to you, and it will follow the exact same rules of weapon replacement. So you just have to plan around that. Each act has, like, usually you want to menu about 6 times in this game. You want to menu at the start of Act 1, start of Act 2. This is for New Game Plus. New Game has to do a couple extra menus. Start of Act 1, start of Act 2, start of Act 3, start of Act 4, and then halfway through Act 4, start of Act 5, and then halfway through Act 5. So there's 7 menus that you want to do in this game for optimal menu management. That accounts for all of these forced weapon swaps and all of that stuff. So, if you were setting up a new file for, say, New Game Plus, the optimal strategy is to only pull the weapons that you need, which is easier said than done, because there's going to be a lot of weapons that you'll just run over on accident and you're stuck with them in your inventory. Honestly, as long as your menu is, like, just to that type 17 and not this many guns, you're fine. You can put in the password and stuff if you'd like. So we're going to talk about the handguns that you want. So the Mark II and the Operator are going to be automatics. You get them when you first talk to Metal Gear, and there's pretty much nothing you can do about that. The 5.7 is a nice handgun. It's reliable, and you'll probably pick it up automatically killing frogs. It's not mandatory. You'll probably never use it. I'm just letting you know it's gonna almost certainly be in your inventory. And then these guns here, the race gun, the Type 17, the DE, the MK23, and the DE long barrel, and the 1911 custom, and the Thor, all of these are password guns. You either beat the game with a special rank or you put a password in and you get these guns. So you will probably not have these in your inventory on an optimally set up file because you won't put the password in and have to deal with them. The last major pistol is the solar gun. So this gun is only relevant for New Game Plus. And what it does is, well, first, the way you earn this gun is you have to non-lethal all 5 bosses, their beast form, or in frog case, you have to non-lethal get through the whole frogs fight without killing any frogs, and then collect a statue at the end of it, and that will give you this. And the reason you want this gun for New Game Plus is on the higher difficulties. If you're going for a non-lethal run, this gun, when fully charged, will almost one-shot everything with a headshot. It'll 2-shot the beauties, which is significantly faster than some of the other non-lethal options you have available to you in the New Game Plus runs. And it's really fast firing, so you see that. And it's useful for Mantis in her doll form because you can fire so fast and pretty accurately that you don't have to worry about misses due to the gun, if that makes sense. You don't have to worry about random bullet patterns or spray or anything. Additionally, on Bike Chase in the Big Boss run, if you go for that, Bike Chase, you pretty much have to learn to get super good with this, because Bike Chase, you enter a state where every enemy is one-shottable. Doesn't matter what difficulty you're on, they'll always get one shot. In terms of stats, or in terms of psyche, which is your stamina in this game, or health. So, because Bike Chase is so difficult, you need to, all of these, like frogs, you just need to take them all down super fast and super reliably with this gun. because the Mark II, the Mosin Nugget, I actually don't think you can use the Mosin Nugget, are just not reliable on bike chase, and you'll die. And this also has a really cool recharge animation. This only works in areas full of sunlight, or this room. But that's not a problem in Act 3, because if you enter... This is going to be the only time I talk about bike chase. Really. If you use the solar gun in the second area of bike chase, and then enter the third area with it equipped, the game actually refills your gun's ammo. And that allows you to use it to get through bike chase. So those are all the handguns that you're really going to end up using. Oh. And then obviously this gun has ammo types, which you switch through. The only one we want is cry ammo. For Act 3, it's useful for some little speed ups to a point. And I'll get into more on that when I do an Act... Excuse me. When I do some tutorials on Act 3. But yeah, what cry ammo does is... We'll see if it happens to these guys. It doesn't, but instead of falling down like this and going to sleep, what cry ammo does is it makes him fall to his knees and he starts crying. And then he becomes stunned. He goes unconscious and he becomes stunned as opposed to going to sleep. That's the importance of cry ammo. I don't know, really. Fear makes them run around in fear, which is not good, but not bad. Really depends what you're doing. Anger is bad. Anger makes them hyper aggressive. And laughter... I don't know what laughter does. I've never used it. You'll have to experiment with it, but it's not useful. Alright. So, next weapon set you'll get... Oh, and you'll also start with the stun knife. Let me explain the stun knife really quick. So, stun knife, you actually want to read this because it took me a long time to realize how the stun knife worked. So, this is lethal. If you use R1, it's lethal. And if you use R2, it's a stun. It's super close range, but we do actually capitalize this. And you saw that it has a huge area of effect. So it's actually kind of useful. Okay. Now, rifles. So you're going to start with this AK. You're stuck with the AK. You can't do anything about it. You're stuck with this M4. You get this when you talk to Drebin. So that's going to be in your inventory. You're never going to use... Well, okay, you're going to use the AK literally one time in the run. And then you're going to stop using it. M4, you're probably not going to use. A new game run might use it if they need it. There's actually a couple places where it does have uses. With this, both this launcher right here and this master key have a couple uses. I'm not going to talk about them because I don't really run the category that uses it. The master key would be like a new game run against Octopus, for example. And the shotgun or the grenade launcher would be, you could use the grenade launcher and launch like a smoke grenade against Wolf if you get like a really good spawn. But we're going to talk about that later too. Other rifles you'll want, and I skipped submachine guns, I realized that, so I'll go back to them. You're probably, I think you're going to pick the MK17 up. Probably going to pick up one of these two. And then that might be it. Tanegashima is a unique weapon. You have to pay like 1,000,000 Drebin points for it. You'll never get it in a new game. It's only going to be a new game plus item. It just sits in your inventory. Supposedly multi-segment could use this because it's like a 15% chance of creating a magic whirlwind that clears all enemies in the room and throws items everywhere. But I mean, at that point you're getting into multi-segments and strats. There's some snipers. So for early game, if you don't have the solar gun, I recommend you use the Mosin Nagant to take out beauties. You simply lay down and just headshot, and 3 headshots will knock a beauty out on any difficulty if you want to go non-lethal on them. And then these two are very important to New Game and New Game Plus runs. So the reason you want this, which is probably, it's like 50,000 weapon points, 25,000 normally, and like 20,000 during Act 5. You want to try to get this by the end of Act 3 in a New Game run, because it one-shots beauties on the first 3 difficulties, and it 2-shots them on Big Boss Hard and the Boss Extreme. Might actually 2-shot them on Solid Normal as well. I don't remember. I'll figure that one out. It also is capable of one-shotting Gecko, which are the like bipedal mechanized Metal Gear things that can just move and then land on you. Overall, against enemies, it's not super useful, and it's a heavy item. So you run slower with heavy. Two-handed weapons. There's a couple classes of weapons that I should explain. There's one-handed, or there's no weapons, knife, one-handed, and throwable. All 4 of those are in one category. They move at this speed. Then there's two-handed weapons and heavy weapons. Or there's two-handed weapons like this rifle and most rifles fall into the two-handed weapons. And then there's heavy weapons, which will be things like rocket launchers and stuff. They move just a little bit slower than the rifles do. So you're always gonna want to be running around with with one of those lighter weapons, no weapons, throwables, one-handed, or a submachine gun, because it's the fastest form of walking movement. And then this gun, this is the railgun. Usually you only get this after you beat Wolf, and then after that, I think the only time you use it in a New Game run would be against some geckos. You can see it charges up, and then you can release more powerful shots with it. In the New Game Plus run, because you start with this, it's actually the fastest way to take out Octopus because of some scripted damage thresholds, and it's the fastest way to take out Raven because it's capable of one-shotting Raven or two-shotting her if you don't get the one-shot. Those are the only 2 places we use it, but it's insanely fast. So it's a very, very valuable gun for New Game runs. And it gets put in your inventory automatically, so you don't need to worry about it. Oh, and the Mosin Nagant you can get as a password for free, so you do not need to buy this gun if you don't want to. The 50 cal you will need to buy. Alright, next up. Submachine guns. Almost all of these are pretty relevant. Patriot's a password item, so you won't get that unless you beat the game on the hardest difficulty with the big boss rank, or you put a password in. And then the P90 is probably the best gun in this game, objectively. It has extremely fast firing rate, and it fires extremely centered shots, allowing for some very quick, precise headshots. If you are going for like an any % run and you don't care about killing enemies, this is a nice gun, and you'll get it almost immediately, automatically, because the frogs in Act 1 will drop it during their boss fight. So you don't have to worry about buying it, you just have to worry about unlocking it. I don't know if you get any of the other ones without like looking for them, but P90 is the only one that matters. And you'll use this in Act 1, and after that you'll pretty much stop using it on like a New Game Plus run. I don't know about a New Game run. Other firearms here. This kind of gets into like, what do you need territory. If you need a machine gun, you'll use one in like a New Game run. If you need a shotgun, you'll use it in a New Game run. Again, I don't really know the specifics on how these work in a New Game run and where they make sense, where they don't, what's good and what's not, other than Octopus. Like, after Octopus, the game really settles in, but Octopus herself and before that is a lot of, I don't know what's going on because I don't run that, and you're going to be better off asking someone else, another runner like Sparty or Jaguar King, who's run the game. And then we get down here to these weapons. So MGL 140 is extremely important, and the Javelin is extremely important. The other three here are relevant, though I would recommend you pick an RPG up for backup. So again, RPG is exclusively a backup weapon. You'll probably never use it, but it's nice to have. Just know it's super slow. The Javelin is actually faster, slightly. The things about the Javelin, though, is that the Javelin, if you stop aiming, your rocket just kind of, it goes wherever. Because you have like a lock-on thing, and the Javelin will actually follow your lock-on. It's used in like New Game for taking out Raven, for taking out Octopus, and for on easier difficulties, it breaks the gate in Act 2 quick. On New Game Plus, it has no use other than maybe to take out the gate if you'd like to, but it's not necessary, and it only saves a couple seconds, and only on the really early difficulties. And then this one is an extremely important item. So the MGL you get from beating Raven, and there's actually quite a few places. If you play New Game, you actually use this on frogs. For liquid, easy, and naked normal, you want to use the WP grenade shot, because it has the explosion and the fire, and both of those will kill everything in one shot. On higher difficulties, you want to just use this grenade because it has higher damage, it has higher damage, so it's a better option, and it will kill more. But it doesn't have as much spread or linger as the WP. Smoke grenades for this are kind of irrelevant. You'll use more normal smokes than you will this. But the stun grenade is super important, because what it does is it stuns enemies, and it allows for something called the Wolf Quick Kill, which we'll get into later. Thankfully, you have this by Wolf, so you can do this on any difficulty. The only downside is on something like TBE, you're only allowed 10 stun grenades, and you cannot buy stun grenades from Drebin on TBE. So you have to be careful about your stun grenade usage on the higher difficulties, as to how you use it, where you like to shoot enemies and whatnot. Since you have such a limited number. Earlier difficulties, you can buy them from Drebin, and you have more than enough. Like, I think on Big Boss Hard, for example, you have like 20, 25, so you'll be fine. Because it only takes 6 for the run. Actually, I think you only use 6, but it's insanely important to the run. And again, you'll get it automatically, so you don't have to be stressed or worry about where you pick it up. Javelin you'll have to either buy or go out of your way to find. There's one in Act 2. It's slightly out of the way though, so it's up to you whether you want to buy it or not. RPG, you can find and pick them up everywhere in Act 1 and Act 2, so you should be fine. And then, explosives-wise, I don't know what you can avoid and what you'll be forced to pick up, but the ones you'll want, stun, chaff, and smoke. And claymore, and sleep gas satchel. So throwables are really unique in this game. A thing you need to know about throwables is that there is both underhand and overhand, and that simply changes by how hard you push the L1 button. Stun grenades themselves are probably only used for Wolf. If you like mess up and you don't have enough stun rounds, you can throw stun grenades at her. Maybe for like dropping into a room, you could take out some frogs or something. Because stun grenades one-shot frogs. But that's personal preference. Throwables are usually slow because you'll see, like, if I activate it, I can then start the throw, but it takes that long to go off. Chaff grenades, there are only about 10 in the game. 2 in Act 2, 2 in Act 3, 2 in Act 4. I mean, that's 6. Supposedly, there's actually 4 in Act 2, but I don't know where the other... There's 2 at Power Station, but I don't know where they're supposed to be. You want to get about 5 chaff grenades for New Game Plus. For a New Game, you're going to have to go out of your way to pick up some chaff grenades. You could pick up 4 really easy, so you'll be fine running New Game. You don't have to worry about it because they're used at a couple spots that are extremely beneficial to you, especially if you're running on Big Boss and you want to avoid alerts. Chaff grenades disable cameras, they disable mini geckos, they confuse big geckos, they cancel alerts and cameras. There's a whole bunch of stuff they do. Smokes are another TBE like best friend. They cause this, and the thing though about smokes is that you also suffer from this cough. It's interesting that I'm not there. I guess you don't do it in the training arena, but you do suffer from coughs. You can't roll through it and avoid it unless it's like at a corner. So you kind of just have to suck it up. But they're extremely useful for getting past enemies if you want to start learning things like TBE. Or Big Boss. I should say if you want to learn Big Boss. And a couple fast strats. Like in Act 5, there's a room that's you use fast strats. Claymore, the only reason you use Claymore is New Game. If you're going for Vamp, or New Game, you have to fight Vamp, and you can set Claymores down. It makes Vamp run into it, which knocks him down, and then after that, you throw these petrol bombs at him. So I forgot about this, and I apologize. And this just keeps him burning. He runs into the Claymore. It's just it's the way New Game players deal with Vamp quickly. And then the last item here is this sleep gas satchel. This is for taking out frogs, the frog fight non-lethally. There's a whole bunch of scripted frog spots. And you can pick these up in the frog fight. There's another kind of sleep gas thing as well that I believe you can pick up. I don't know which one they use. It might be this one, the sleep gas mine instead. But I think it's the satchel because the satchels are faster. But yeah, it's just you put them down in locations and they make enemies. They just knock enemies out. So they're good items to have. But that's not what I do. Not what I focus on. So I don't know too much about them other than you're gonna want a couple of them. And then finally, stun knife's automatic. You're gonna get that automatically. Magazine's automatic. Playboy and emotion mags, you'll probably never pick up. You might, I don't know, but this category is so short, and it's always at the bottom. So these last two dolls, casually only pick up the Mantis doll. Don't pick up the Saru doll, and you'll save some time having to go through the Saru doll every time, because you only need the Mantis doll to beat the fight. The Saru doll is actually not useful. And that is all of the weapons that are useful and beneficial to this game.